Welcome to another edition of the KING OBED Podcast. In today's episode, I have with me Shane Laufman, who is an FQ3C Achievement Behavioral Model developer. And this is something he has developed and is changing the traditional way of setting goals. Today, he's here to unravel everything about success and challenge our thoughts about success, what we knew, what we know, and what we didn't know. So welcome to the KING OBED Podcast, Shane.
Thank you so much for having me here, Obed. I appreciate it. And I'm excited to talk about this topic on goal setting and success and achievement. It's a wild ride for everybody. I know that everybody really wants to dig deeper. And so I'd love to be able to be here and showcase that model for everyone.
Great. What's the most counterintuitive thing or insight you've heard about success?
So I'd say the most counterintuitive thing is people believe that being able to do success is all about this idea of you're going to achieve something. And when you're trying to achieve something, if you quote unquote fail, that means that you are a failure. And so they're in this weird state of mind where they think that, okay, just because I went and I tried something and I didn't make it means that I'm bad, I'm a failure, or I'm somebody who is not worthy, all sorts of these different crazy pieces. And what we know is that we're not taught to really seek truth. We are taught to seek process systems, and we're taught to assimilate to what is perceived as true or what's shoved down our throats. This is the epidemic, if you see it that way anyways, that's happening in your news and your media and your social feeds. And it's a huge reason why social media has been so influential in breaking down a lot of those barriers, of course, but also just as poisonous, because you can follow who you want to follow. And if somebody's saying things that aren't true, how do you know? And why I bring that up is because success actually has definition. Same thing like the word successful has definition. Same thing as the word achievement has its own definition. And I would argue that what we use in the dictionary does not serve it justice. So I'll give you this, for example. If you are going to wake up today and you say, I want to make a sandwich, and you go downstairs and you put your peanut butter and your jelly on your sandwich, and you now made your sandwich, were you not success? Like, did you not just do a success?
Yeah, you succeeded in that thing. Yeah.
You succeed, right? So the real definition of success, we can see it right there. It's not having a lot of money. It's not trying to be happy. It's not trying to do it. It's legitimately just, I had a goal of any type of intensity, and I achieved that goal. That's the definition of success, and don't let anybody trick you otherwise. And then we can now use this to say, okay, what is successful? It's in the name, guys. Full of success. Successful. If you imagine like it's a cup of water, success is that one drop that goes into the water, and then successful is when your water cup is overflowing. It's full of successes that are sequential, that are happening over time. And that, if it's constantly full, leads to then what we define as achievement. You can also test this out by asking yourself, if you go and try and do a job interview and they say, great, what is it that you've achieved? Well, achieves is the accolades. It's the things that you put on your wall. It's the things that you're able to tell people that these are my biggest moments. These are the biggest elements that you and I can both agree on are something that all of my successful moments led to a definitive moment of an accolade. So I'd say that's probably the most controversial thing that I have in all my conversations is people don't have any definition of these words. Where do they fit? Why are they important to fit where they are? And when we understand that, now we can start actually breaking down how to track it at the end of the day. And something else to think too is if you decided to sit down today and play video games for 6 hours, even though you're telling your friends and family that you are really trying to find a job, I'm going to let you know you had success today. You had success in playing your games. So there's actually really no such thing as not having success, because every single time that you do an action, there was a goal that was behind it. There's an event that happened, that transpired. There was an outcome. You put input, there's an outcome. That output was the success. So you're actually successful every day. Your whole life is full of success. The difference is just, are you going to be putting all of your successes into the cup that is leading to an achievement, or into the cup that's going to be leading to you, I guess you'd say, filling your own desires, having your own piety? your own pride, whatever it may be. So I'd say that's the biggest challenge so far.
All right. So it means that we have all been successful in one way or the other. And
You're always successful.
Our definition of success is relative.
Yeah, and it needs to no longer be relative. It needs to change so that it's definitive. That's the key. So if I can define that if I took my action today and I had an outcome, even though I might perceive the outcome as bad, I actually had a success in that moment in doing all the things I needed to have that outcome. And so it's not really actually subjective at all. The subjectivity is not on the outcome. The subjectivity is what you view the outcome as from an emotional stance. And that's the thing that we need to differentiate.
All right. Because most times what happens is that if, for instance, I have set my eyes on a goal, right, and I'm able to do to a point, and maybe a colleague that I also look up to has done something surpassing mine, I'm able to say that because my colleague has surpassed what I've done, I am not successful.
Yeah, and that's not true. What you can say is that he reached a higher accolade. That's about it. Or he achieved something greater, but that doesn't mean that you did not have success in your day. That doesn't mean that you didn't have success in your actions prior. And it doesn't mean that you haven't been successful this whole entire time. What it is just what have you been successful in? By definition of what a success is, it's just you put information in and there was an outcome. The only time that something is not technically a success is when you come up with what I would call the error code.
Okay.
Error.
It means you didn't put in the right information.
Yeah, there's no right information. So because of that, then we don't come out with any quality information, which kind of goes to my point. If you're coming up with the wrong information, then you are not actually successful according to that information you're seeing. You were successful at something, though. We just don't know what it was.
Interesting. Is there a difference between achieving success and achieving excellence?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So excellence is going to be defined by a goal, and then just achieving success is going to be the, if you will, the outcome of any objective whatsoever. So I'll give you an example.
Okay.
If my goal defines that a excellent sandwich requires tomatoes, lettuce, onions, cucumbers, mustard, and 2 pieces of bread. That is the definition of what would be considered an excellent sandwich. Then if I go to make the sandwich and I have 2 pieces of bread and I have tomatoes and I have mustard and I put it together, I have successfully made a sandwich. So there was a success there. Sandwich made. Woohoo! But was it excellent? No. Excellence is I'm missing things to create an excellent sandwich. So defining that goal is what determines the level, if you will, of quality and what we would say is a quality sandwich or excellent sandwich. And that would be the differentiator.
Okay. So you are against, or you say that the usual way that we know that, goal setters tell us that our goal should be specific, should be measurable, should be achievable, should be relevant, should be time bound. You say that these strategies are flawed, and that is why you've come out with this FQ3C Achievement Behavioral Model. What actually is the FQ3C model?
Great. That's a great question. And you're right. You basically went through what's called the SMART goal model. And SMART goals is absolutely flawed. If anybody has used SMART goals frequently in their practice, number one, they know that relevance is completely subjective. There's no way to quantify it. It makes no sense. And so it shouldn't even be part of there in the first place. So really the only 4 variables in the SMART goal model that mean anything is the S, the M, the A, and the T. It should be really SMAT goal, but it's a marketing grab. So when we're talking about FQ3C, number one, FQ3C is based upon actually quantifying every one of your behaviors, including the specificity. So did you know that you can actually quantify your specificity? You can quantify your if you will, metrics, which is what it's talking about, measurable, of course, that's a given. Attainable is something that also can be quantified as well. People don't think of it that way, but it can. And then, of course, timely. Well, if you don't quantify your timeliness, then you're also missing the point. And that's where SMART goals really ends up breaking down, is not only is it just completely subjective, there's no real framework for definition, which is kind of what we talked about before, but you also are leaving so much room for guesswork, and which is why we have no real definition of what excellence is, no definition of what achievement is in our world today. So FQ3C stands for frequency, quality, consistency, continuity, and clarity. But that's actually just the first 5 variables out of 12 that actually need to be present for a good goal. Believe it or not.
So frequency,
quality.
What is the key? Quality.
Yeah.
Consistency. Yeah.
Continuity. And then clarity. Yeah, that's what FQ3C stands for. That's the first 5.
Okay.
And then
there are 12 variables for this.
Yeah, there's 12. And that sounds daunting. And in all honesty, if you're going to create a really, really good goal, you're right. it takes a little bit more effort to really come up with everything you need. And SMART goals, that's where it misses the mark. So I'll give you an example. If you want to make a sandwich, great, use SMART goals. That doesn't require much. But if you want to become a billionaire, I'm sorry, the level of intensity of your definition that you need to become a billionaire, everybody would agree. And if they aren't going to agree, we're going to just have to remain on different sides of the aisle on this one.
Yeah.
But almost everybody should agree, I would assume, that it's going to be way harder to go and become a billionaire, which means you have to be that much more defined, that much more focused, that much more intentional, which means you need to be more clear on those goals. And there's not one time where SMART goals has ever been enough to make that happen. And so FQ3C, by using all the 12 variables, we finally can actually quantify your probability of succeeding the goal. And by using the variables, we can actually get more definition on the goal. And so in our assessment, we actually have 11 questions, and they're addressing completely different pieces. So right there, if SMART is 4, we're addressing 11 right there. And you're able to take a look and see, do I have this particular element inside of the goal that I've written? And it tells you how complete your goal is. If you want to be a billionaire, I'm sorry, 80% completion is not going to get you there. 85 is not going to get you there. You got to be at least 95% or more at all times. Clarity on where you're going, what you're doing, why you're doing it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That you hear all these other multimillionaires, your favorite trending influencer, your favorite guru, whoever it is that you loved, whatever they had. The fact is that they are incredibly specific to a level that you can't even imagine. And that's part of the reason why you're also missing the point. If SMART goals is telling you, hey, listen, be specific, how specific? What does it even look like? Great. FQ3C actually gives you that framework and tells you what it is and shows you what it is, and then gives you a percentage to tell you how clear you actually are. So that's just one of the assessments. And that doesn't even count like the fact that if you want to get to a destination like in the GPS, you need to know where you are. Let's say I'm in Wisconsin. You know where you're going. Let's say it's somewhere in California, 3205 something XYZ drive in California. Yeah. I need to know those 2 things first. And then I also need to know the path to get there. I need to know at what rate am I going to get there. This is why we all use the same exact information on our GPSs. We want to know how long is it going to take, and we want to know how far is it, and we want to know where along this path am I. And am I going off or am I on track towards my destination? But there's nothing out there right now except for FQ3C at the end of the day. And that's why we built the model. And again, it's quantitative. It's just like you're taking a GPS, putting on top of your head. You get to see the progress bar, and you get to observe yourself, your individual behaviors from day to day, and say, great, am I moving towards or away from it? And quantify every single one of your activities down to an incredibly specific granular level, which is phenomenal. And honestly, it's what we've all been missing for years now. And the next best thing was SMART goals. And I say was because now
because I'm asking that because that is the traditional way that we know what we have come to accept, that your goals at any point in time, your goals should be SMART and be specific, be measurable, be achievable, be relevant and time bound. So when you want to debunk such a theory that we have all come to believe or accept, then it means that your model should have been something that is so special. And on the back of you saying that we should be able to quantify or track our progress or quantify these behaviors, what are the key metrics that I should be able to say track in order to say that I'm being successful in this particular thing?
Perfect. So the 12 variables at the end of the day, We had originally a 12 C's, but we realized that was hard for people to keep track. So we did do a little bit of an alteration. So now there's two sets of FQ3C that we talked about earlier. One's an internal, one's an external. And I will say that when you read the book, which is called Doomed to Succeed, or if you want to listen to the audiobook, you can also go to FQ3C.com to get that. You'll learn that there's actually some nuance there between how you actually track and how you measure. But the core of it, to answer your question, is it comes down to an internal and external frequency, which is anything where there is a parameter and an event. Meaning miles is your event, per hour is your parameter, right? You could do push-ups per set. You could do cookies per sheet. You could do, girls per application. whatever it is, there has to be some sort of parameter or per involved. Okay, so this already is critical because this is how we're able to start creating specificity. I didn't say it is specificity, it's creating specificity. That right there, a lot of people don't even realize is actually just a fragment of S inside of SMART goals. Okay. Next part of specificity has to go into quality. Quality is a combination of two elements, which is value and belief. And you need value and belief to create any decision ever. And also in the book, I run through examples to prove this. So if you really want to know if we're telling the truth or not, I highly suggest going there. It will challenge you, and it's pretty hard to do any sort of refuting because you just need it. So when you quantify value and belief, what that does is it creates the thermometer, which is the definition of good by the perceiver. And when you solidify what is good and what is bad, and you combine that with your event with a parameter, we finally get our first check mark of specificity. So if you notice, SMART says, specific. We're saying, look, this is how you create specific. And it takes F and Q, which is the combination of value and belief. And now you have to measure it and put it all together. We know, and we can test if it's actually specific enough through the next variable, which is consistency. Interestingly enough, we know that within SMART, the last variable is T, which is time bound.
Time bound.
Well, in order for us to know and test our F and Q, we have to have time to activate consistency, right? You have to do something more than once in a particular way to even say I'm consistent. So now we've actually broken time into two separate categories. One is the activation unit, and then the other one is coming later, which is duration. And I'll just bring duration in quick. Duration then, which is the other half of time bound, is your relationship in terms of the constraints of time. So do I have enough time? And how am I using my time? Because that's our one, if you will, commodity that everybody has, but nobody knows how much they have of. And so you set timely barriers to help segment your time out. And that again adds to specificity. So if you're noticing what I'm doing here, they say be specific, but if you leave that to chance and nobody actually thinks about this critically, then they're never specific.
Okay.
And that's one of the biggest flaws of that model. So we're going great.
So by your explanation, right? So with the SMART model, what happens is that it gives us the outcome, but the process in which you go to get the outcome is not there. And that is what the FQ3C model has come to do. Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. And it gives you the quantitative measurements and tools to tell you, hey, listen, here's how complete you are. Or I was speaking with a company called Helpopedia today, actually. And we were discussing his term, which was how not efficient. He was saying how, I can't remember his exact word. But his mind was basically saying, is it holistic, effectively? Is it whole or is it parsed? And so holistic, is it completed? Is it something where it's completely realized, however you want to say it? You need to have a lot of elements there to have a fully realized, fully completed, fully I won't call it perfect goal. I don't think that perfection's in there, but at the very least, something where we've addressed all of the appropriate variables to say this goal is something I can now work from, right? And SMART doesn't tell you any of that. It just doesn't. And if anybody's ever tried to use it, you'll realize immediately that if I say, great, create a SMART goal on what you want to accomplish this year, be specific and be measurable. Okay, as far as I've seen most people get is, I want to make $1 million by the end of this year. I've been specific. I'm like, that's not specific at all. That is just one tiny little piece, and that is really actually either going to be your macro metric, or it's your just mid metric. It's one of those two. But you haven't even gone into the other micro metrics required. You haven't gone into the avatars required. You haven't gone into the belief, the value required. You haven't addressed anything else. And SMART goals doesn't even prompt you to do that. So
interesting.
It's wild.
Interesting. So you see that when we accept something, it's very difficult to change. And
yes,
when you are trying to instill change in people, sometimes there's a bit of resistance and hesitation, right? And so for the people or the companies that you try to incorporate or instill this new model of the FQ3C into their way of doing things as against the SMART goal principle, what has been the challenges?
I would say that the biggest challenge up front is getting them to come to the realization that SMART goals is actually not efficient. The quickest way we've been able to do that is we just do one demo of the assessment itself. Within just one time of doing the demo, they go, oh my goodness, I didn't know what I didn't know. And it's the first time, it's like their eyes are wide open. They're like, wow, this actually works. Then we reach a second challenge. That second challenge is, how are they able to apply the tool? And I've noticed that a lot of people, although they understand that goals are effective, and although they have used the SMART goal system, I think it's because of the fact that it's been such an ineffective tool most of the time.
Yeah.
They don't actually really know where SMART goals is supposed to be placed. So they just kind of use it as a throw against the wall and as a way to kind of give some direction, better than no direction. And so when they find how specific this is, they go, wait a minute, this is like the first time I've ever used a hammer in my life. It's like watching somebody who's had a hammer in their hand the whole time, but they've been banging it on the side, or they've been banging it with the forks and trying to put a nail in. It's kind of worked. And I'm like, wait a minute, just turn the hammer around. And like, wait, the application here is endless and it's hard for them to grasp. So I have to typically work with them a little bit to help say, this is where it belongs in your model. This is where it belongs with your patients. This is where it belongs. And I'd say the third thing is ease of use. At the end of the day, ease of use of SMART goals is easier because it's not specific, it's not defined, and it's a good throw against the wall. And it's lazy, right? Lazy is easy. But if we're looking to accomplish and achieve and obtain an accolade, that is not easy. That is hard. And it's foolish to try and do a hard thing while being lazy. You need to be deliberate and specific and determined and motivated and all those other different pieces to get there. So why would you not have something that gives you the full picture, the full map, and you can use it to track your progress on your way to a difficult destination? And so getting them to recognize that it's actually the sooner that you get people accustomed to the more, we'll call it quote unquote difficult, which is funny to me because everybody actually intuitively does this anyways. They just don't know that they do it. But when you like bring a student into a course or whatever it is, you have to bring in a element of like ease of use, or are they ready to accept that this is something that's critical to them actually succeeding at whatever the end result is that they're trying to obtain. So that's the third barrier that's been the most difficult. But we've been able to overcome all three. And it typically only takes us, again, one demo, a little bit of a question session, and then everyone's like, okay, great, we need to actually implement this as soon as possible. How do we get started? Let's go.
Interesting. So, okay, so you are able to instill this kind of changes in people who have accepted the SMART system for quite a number of years and they are using it. Well, whether it's been successful or not, they are the only people or the only persons who can measure those progress. Now, in terms of measuring our progress, whether using the SMART system or the FQ3C, where do we go wrong? if, for instance, I've set a goal for myself, and in the process of achieving that goal, I want to track my progress. What are some of the things I do wrong that will not make me have a proper progress tracking?
Yeah, so the thing that is missing from the SMART goal as far as tracking is concerned is there's no quantifiable data outside of the M. But I have no way to actually measure, if you will, specificity. I have no way to measure relativeness or R. I have no way to measure the achievable, attainable, and it doesn't tell me how to measure those things. And there's really no way to also measure timeliness per se. It just tells you to be timely. So all it is telling you. It's not giving you the pieces to say, hey, listen, did you actually improve or did you backtrack? Are you in line with your SMART goal, right? Measuring, the M is the only one that you have to work from. And that's the problem. Because if my measurement of success in my goal states by the end of the year, I'm going to make $1 million, and today's the 1st of January, I have until December 31st. Okay, then my only measurement I have of me getting there is just effectively my only data point, which is the money. But in order for me to obtain the money, there's a ridiculous amount of behaviors that have to happen on the back end. I have to progress in so many other areas to even get my starting point and even get some money. And here's the other problem. By compounding behaviors amplifies and accelerates income. So how am I supposed to know if my behavior of today is leading to even my first dollar or leading to my minimum needs of, let's say, $1,000 per day? How do I know? There's nothing in SMART goals there, right?
Yeah.
Because we're able to actually quantify every single activity, action, feeling, emotion inside of the FQ3C model, it means that if today I was able to quantify my thought and say, hey, listen, I thought 10% less, let's say, of a negative emotion towards me going out and having to do prospecting today. That's actually an improvement. And it's quantifiable. Because why? If I have 100 thoughts a day that are going towards negative thoughts and a negative emotion, a negative perception of going out and prospecting, and today I only had 90, is that not a quantifiable event? Is that not a percentage increase? Is that not something that's important to measure and something to take into account? That right there can be a 1% increase. That could be a 2% increase. It's all, of course, relative to the goal, but it is an increase. And that's the beautiful thing about FQ3C is you can actually see your progress in every facet, which means that even though you don't see $1,000 that came into your bank account today, I get to see that I had a 5% increase in my behaviors. And these behaviors are exactly what I need to do to get that $1,000 to come into the bank account within whatever time frame it is that I've set. That's what it actually means to be specific. And that's where FQ3C quantifies it, and you can see that tracking bar because of it.
Okay. So the tracking difference between the SMART goal system and the FQ3C model is that with the FQ3C model, you're able to quantify and track your progress as well.
Yeah, with every single type of behavior that you are made up of as a person. SMART just only tracks one, which is just whatever the metric was that you placed in there. So you have to place some sort of metrics to create a tracking mechanism.
Okay. Do we need to read your book? Do you have a resource material that people would have to use, or we need to come to you before we can use this FQ3C model?
The beautiful part is
which is accessible.
Yeah, absolutely. So the beautiful part is that the answer is no. You don't have to read the book. You don't have to do the workbook. You don't have to do the audiobook in order to use the assessments. The assessments are made right now so that you could actually go there and you will immediately get feedback that tells you if you did or did not. And because of how we do the assessments, you're able to see what you're missing. So you actually don't need anybody. You can just use the assessments by itself. What I will say is if you want to accelerate your ability to work through the assessments to make it so it's only 1 or 2 times each versus potentially taking maybe 4 or 5 to poke around and figure it out, you'll actually save more money by just buying the book, reading it.
Okay.
And also an assessment is included in the book. So when you buy the book, there's a QR code that we have, and then you can scan it and you get a free assessment on us as part of the book. So actually, it's way more savings if you just go that route. And also, we've seen way more accelerated behavioral changes when people incorporate the book and the workbook alongside of the assessment.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give you an example. One individual ended up doing the first assessment by themselves. They said, this is great. And then they did a second one and they saw the progress and they kind of just felt like they did a good job.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, they did a good job on the goal piece. But if you still look at where they're at today, they have not achieved their goal. All they did is they gained definition of the goal. Versus I have another person that ended up reading the book, did the workbook, and they listened to the audiobook. And they also did the goals and they did 5 assessments. And after doing that whole process, within 30 days, they increased their revenue by 90%.
Wow.
One, they've still been at this position for, months. The other one, it's, this now makes total sense. I understand the model. I see how I actually work in my brain. I see how I work as a full unit. And now I'm able to actually take deliberate action. And now the assessments become amplified in their usability. This is the same thing as like one person sees the hammer, they know that it hits nails, they take it, they hit the nail. They may or may not hit it with the head. You don't know. They hit the nail. Wow, that was great. It works. And then they go back to using, I don't know, the screwdriver because that's what they've used this whole entire time. It's like, okay, great. You got to use a nail and they feel satisfied. The other person goes, I'm going to actually learn everything about this. And then they learn that, hey, listen, there's this little nook on the back of the hammer that you can put the nail into. And you can take the hammer to create the lead, turn it around, and with one swipe, you have a nail completely in there. And they used it fully, effectively, and efficiently. Sure, it takes you a little more time to learn the nuance of the hammer, but who's going to actually win at building the house?
Oh, so
that, yeah.
What have been the success rate with regards to those who have used the FQ3C model, and then some of the feedbacks that you've had from the customers or the people that you've sold this FQ3C model to them?
You said what's the sorry?
What has been the success rate? What has been the success rate in terms of you giving this model to these companies and people, individuals, and also there's feedback from these individuals?
I have had 0% of people thus far, even if they just use the assessments by themselves, say that they didn't walk away with some sort of transformative experience.
Okay.
Not a single person so far. As far as the people who we've seen the most successes from, it again has been the people who have read the book and used the assessments in tandem with each other at a minimum. We've literally seen people no longer be compulsive liars. We've seen people, again, 90% increase in their revenue in a single month. We've seen people work through divorces and then they end up starting an entire new company. I myself wrote a 62,000 word book, which is like 300 plus pages in 16 days because of using the model, right? We have doctors who've said, oh my gosh, this is the first time that there's anything that could be standardized to help the insurance companies with the behavioral specialist not practitioners, psychologists, and bridge that gap between them and the patients and the payment processing model that's there. We've seen it help in increasing the just clarity for sales teams, and then their metrics all go up like crazy. The thing is, we've seen it every single time. Every single time there's something clear, and it's because SMART goals at the end of the day, it just is missing. It's missing so much. And most people have some sort of goal or aspiration or something that they want to achieve. I don't care what it is. But if you are not using all 12 variables within the process and within creation of the goal, then you are harming your ability to get there. Going back to the GPS analogy, it's like you're trying to say, I'm going to go from Wisconsin to California, or maybe from Ghana up to the UK. Well, if you don't have direction, you don't have all of your information, then you might book a trip. You might book a boat, right? I'm going to go on a boat, but you're like, dude, you could have gotten there all by land. Or better yet, we're not able to even get here by a boat. Or you're going to go completely off track and you think you're going to UK and you actually somehow end up in Australia, or, and was in the United States. Instead of California, you ended up over in Texas. It's it's so obvious the win of just being able to know, hey, this is actually how I get here. And knowing the data of how long, how far, and now I can know where I am relative to the destination at all times. And that's the critical part. You can know it at all times. And I will say this. People who are hyper successful, who are the billionaires of today, who are the Olympic gold medalists, etc., who have coaches and mentors and all these things that are helping them along. The truth is that most of the time, either they are so good at already creating their goal and making it so real for them, and they always are tracking and knowing exactly how to do it anyways,
Yeah.
or they have a coach that knows how to judge where they are relative to the destination. There's always somebody or something there that's acting as a GPS. But how many people can afford $20,000, $30,000, hundreds of thousands of dollars to afford that coach, afford that program, afford that process, or afford whatever it is to guide them the whole time?
Yeah.
Nobody
Yeah.
can afford that these days. So if you can't afford that, you should be able to at least afford a couple of bucks for an assessment that you can use yourself. You can't afford $10 to listen to an audiobook that will allow you to activate the assessments to the maximum.
Yeah.
You can't afford to go and start taking care of this yourself because it's maybe $30 a month if you're really wanting to go all in on this and do your tracking for 1 or 2 goals at a time, whatever. And the cool thing is completely up to you. We don't care, but we do want you to have a completely different mindset shift and change and exposure and become excited about finally having a progress bar above you, like the video games. We love the progress bar because we don't want to go and challenge a boss that's too far above us because we know we'll die. We want to have one that tells us, hey, listen, your chances of succeeding at beating this next enemy is well within range of you where you are now to doing it. Oh, and here's your remaining health. Oh, here's your amount of attacks. Oh, here's their remaining health. We love that. This is the first one out there to do that for you.
Great. So why do people get stuck at some point in the goal achieving process, and why do others also succeed? What is the striking difference between those who get stuck at some point and those who succeed?
I think there's a couple of reasons that really come to mind. Number one, it's pre-programming. Our school and collegiate system are programmed for us to become workers, which as a worker, the goals and the metrics and the standards of expectations are placed upon you.
Okay.
Right? So believe it or not, being able to create a quality goal is actually a skill. And it is not trained at any point within education systems across the globe to do this unless you're in like maybe Harvard or something like that, and they really put high pressure on you. And you are also expected to just figure it out, right? They don't care. Their business model is not actually you being successful. Their business model is you getting a degree, and they don't even care about that as much. That's just how they tell people. But really, if you look at the amount of dropouts that happen at these schools and stuff like that, and the amount of kids that barely pass their exams, it's going down, and it's really scary at the end of the day. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we're just training the wrong way. So that training without that goal setting and without that tracking mechanism, without that focus, if you will, on the quantitative data and its importance in that measuring along the way is a huge piece that people have to overcome. And I'd say the second piece comes down to a lot of people are believing that just because they got the degree or just because they got the doctoral title, they're chasing title versus chasing, we're going to say, chasing results. A title is a result, but the title only gives you permission, or I should say gives you a displayed, if you will, brand that you can get results. The problem is again, the collegiate system doesn't train you how to actually go and quantify and figure out those results in the vast majority of the courses, classes, programs that you're going to enter into. The third thing is, I'd say, an addiction. There's an addiction to processes, systems, and it's running rampant. And I'd say the third one is there's another addiction, which is to keep it simple, stupid. The KISS model. There's so much truth into both of them. But the reason why you're going to have 90% of people try Grant Cardone's process or system, which, by the way, is not bad by any means. And if it's paired with the right person, it's phenomenal. It will get amazing results. The missing piece is the fact that these people are not able to gauge for themselves if I'm actually the right fit for the model. They believe that the model is the savior that will get them out of where they are now without realizing that, hey, listen, you have all of these other variables, all these other processes, all these other systems that you yourself are on a daily basis using that don't fit with that model. So you're going to spend thousands of dollars to not see anything happen at the end of the day. But we're addicted. We're saying, what model do I need? What tool do I need? What model do I need? What tool? How about what behaviors do you need? What are your underlying changes emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually that you need first? And what are the prerequisite behaviors mentally, spiritually, physically that the model demands for them to become powerful and amplify the greatness that you already are right now, right? That addiction is a huge problem, and that's what we're trying to come in and showcase is, guys, this is actually the missing piece, and you need to measure. And if you can measure, you can create a probability of success. You can see if I am or not met for this model or not. And you can do that before spending thousands of dollars and trying to enter into something where it obviously is going to be that you're going to fail. And I say fail, meaning like it's obvious that that model is not made for you, right? Or that process, system, software, whatever it may be.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. Are we prepared well for success? Are we prepared to succeed?
We are prepared to succeed at, I would say, low level thought, low level work. That's what we're prepared for.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
Right? Low level preparation, low level thought, low level work. That's what we're prepared for. And this is not pointing fingers at any one person. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But if you think about just even social media and how the attention span has gone down by everybody, right? It used to be that for you to get a dopamine hit, you would have to literally go out, take an axe, cut down a tree, from the tree, put it into blocks. When they're blocks, wrap them up, walk through the snow, go back to another location, and then put them down, go grab your kindling, go grab your little pieces of wood, grab some sort of hay, find a match, put the match there, sit there, blow on it while you're shivering cold to get the fire. Do you realize the patience, the resilience, the determination, the focus, the specificity, the FQ3C actions, activities you have to succeed at one thing? Back in the day, that's what life was, right? And they were trained for the harshness of the wild, and they were trained for the success level, I would say, is to be extremely high. Relative to life, right? Just as a general statement. That was for everything. Gathering food, building your shelter, getting fire, doing your social, everything. Like if I wanted to go find my friend, I had to go walk 4 miles. Why? Because my dad only had one horse and he's using it in the field to plow something. I couldn't just pop in a car, go over there, and it's 45 minutes away. So my point is today, we get this hit no longer by even doing anything. We get the hit by swiping. A single swipe triggers the dopamine. Really? And then the video I watch is meant to make my brain get dopamine as fast as possible. And if I don't get my dopamine as fast as possible, what do? Swipe again. I succeeded at something with literally no thought, no effort, and no preparation. So that's what I mean.
It means that if we want to get to the highest point of success, it means we need to put in the energy, put in the hard work, put in or focus on building systems like you're talking about the FQ3C model, which people are using. These are the things that we should focus on, not just about, having a free day at work and then wanting to be successful.
Yes. Yeah. And I would say it's even more than that. It's you need to focus on something hard. At the end of the day, you need to choose something hard. Yeah. You're going to have to reprogram yourself out of this, I'll call it keep it simple, stupid daily activities. You need to focus on, I need to actually make it so that I am growing and developing to reach the demand of something hard. Yeah. Because by the time that I reach the demand of something hard, of course I'm going to achieve it. everybody and their mother can climb Mount Everest. Seriously, as long as you have, even in today's technology, you don't even have to have all of your limbs. Some doctor somewhere made the technology that you can have fake limbs so you can climb Mount, like almost every single person can do it, right? So the question is what is the demand to do it? Everybody knows it's hard, but for those people who actually get there, the reward for them is not actually the mountain. The reward for them was the behaviors to make it so that anything and everything they want to do in the future becomes easier. Because how many things are really much harder than climbing Mount Everest?
One of probably the hardest.
It is one of the hardest, right? So reaching hard actually makes life easy. Reaching for easy makes life really hard. So you got to reach for hard. And that's where FQ3C comes into play. Is it no longer makes hard undefined. It no longer makes hard something where it's grueling, because you can in every single moment that you decide to go back and track yourself. You can see it. And listen, sometimes you might have backtracked. That's just as important. It's not just to see, did I go 1% more? It's, did I go 1% back? And if you're shooting for something hard and you know that that hard thing will demand nothing less than your best, then you know that that 1% decrease, it stings. It stings enough that you'll change your behavior to keep going, of course, if that's where you really want to go. So that's why I think is really the biggest problem right now.
Yeah, because I asked that because you see, now success, when we, like you've defined right from the start, how people see success, how people, perceive it, and the things to do to get all this success, as we are talking about, it goes through a lot of things, a lot of hard work, a lot of challenges. Whether sometimes people think, okay, the process that maybe Mr. A used might not be the same process which Mr. B used. But then again, there are systems that people use, like you are championing the FQ3C model. This is a system that when you use, is going to give you a defined path of success. And you are able to track your success rate in terms of whatever you find yourself doing. So I think that's anything that we set our minds, our minds on, we set a goal that we want to achieve is achievable. But are we ready to go through the mill? Are you ready to go through the hard work that people go through to get all the stuff they get? So I think in trying to set out the FQ3C model, you've really laid it out well, trying to say it, you need to quantify the things, track your progress, and it gives you the metrics to be able to measure the stuff that you are using, the behaviors and everything. So I think this is a good model that each and every person should get hold of and then apply to his or her life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do want to be clear. This model is actually not a system. We can create systems around the model, but the model itself is actually not a system. The model itself is more like your DNA. If you're aware of the double helix of your DNA, right?
Yeah.
We would call that a model of your genetic code, right? But you wouldn't call that a system per se. The system is what comes in and says, hey, if we want to change this particular code on the DNA strand, we use this system to alter this piece. Okay. So I want to be clear, FQ3C is actually the model, almost like the DNA strand model, but it's for your brain and how it works from a behavioral stance. And it is a model that helps you to measure your achievement and the probability of achieving, right? So that's the model. The tools that we have, the systems that we have around it is really comes down to you can talk with one of our implementers. They can come in and train you. You can go and get the book and the workbook, and that in combination with the assessments is there to help be the system that you can use to really activate and understand, and then utilize it more for yourself and wherever you're at. And then we also have for our partners, we have gray label and white label options. We will actually build out a portal for you and your company so you can use it with your clients and you can track their progress, which is just as important for any business. You want to track everything that you possibly can. Right? So those processes, those systems are built around the model. And I want to be clear about that. The model is actually the key at the end of the day. Yeah.
Right. So how can we connect with FQ3C model inventor the team? Where can we connect? How do we get access to your books and to the articles that you've been writing about the FQ3C model?
Yeah, so you can find everything at FQ3C.com. You go to FQ3C.com, you can do /assessments. That will take you to all the assessments that we have available right now that you can use for yourself on your own time. You also can do FQ3C.com /partners. That's where you can learn more about the gray label and white label option. If you're interested in the audiobook or the regular book or the workbook, you can go to FQ3C.com /books. I believe it's plural. If that doesn't work, do book.
Yeah.
But you on that page, you're going to see the different ways you can purchase the book. We have not published out in regular public yet. We're actually reserving that because we have some doctors that are reviewing the work right now to verify that everything is easy for their patients to read and accept. So before the doctors are done, we're biting at the chomp. We want to publish, but we're waiting for them because this is really made for patients, right? And then if you want to gain access to the audiobook, you can also go there as well. We also have certification programs. These programs make it so that you are going to be trained how to make it so that FQ3C becomes your secondary thought. What I mean by that is today, it doesn't matter what anybody says. My brain now is constantly filtering and putting everything into the categories of FQ3C and constantly quantifying, constantly measuring. And it's made me like 75 to 80% more efficient in my life, which is part of the reason why I was able to write the book in 16 days. Right? I don't think people understand how hard of a challenge that is. It was wild. And I actually documented everything on Facebook. That also goes to that too. Most social media platforms, our handle is at FQ3C Success. And if you're still having a hard time finding us, FQ3C.com on the homepage, scroll down. We have all the social media handles and links to them right there. If you'd love to follow us and get more information, more updates. We're soon going to be doing a top 100 conversation with one of our practitioners. So this is one of the partners that uses it in their business and their practice. And we're going to be doing the top 100. So we're going to be talking about like Apple. We're going to be talking about the top Olympic athletes. Jerry Rice in football is the best wide receiver of all time. Michael Jordan, best NBA player of all time. I know I'm going to piss some people off with that statement. But we're going to be looking at those top 100 in a bunch of different areas. And we're going to say, hey, listen, let's break them down. Let's do an actual FQ3 assessment live. And we're going to have a conversation about them, about the variables. And you're going to see their successes. You're going to see their achievements in a completely different light. You're going to see it from their behaviors. And you're going to see it at a quantitative level. And we'd love to see everybody join us for that as well. It's going to be really fun, really exciting. And if you love this, keep in touch. If you want to get a hold of me, it's just Laufman Shane is my LinkedIn handle. So linkedin.com /in/Laufman Shane.
Wow. What are your final words to the listeners, the viewers, the followers of King Obed Podcast? What are your final words?
What are our followers, you said?
What are your final words to the followers
my final
of
words.
the King Obed Podcast? Yes, and the audience, the listeners, and the viewers as well.
Yeah. Here's my final words. If you and your coach, if you and your professional, if you and your favorite influencer, if they are not tracking and if they are not making it so that you can track your behaviors, if they're not addressing your internal and your external, if they are not servicing you entirely for your success, then I would say you need to get them to start using FQ3C because that's going to hold them accountable. That's going to hold you accountable. And that's how you're going to see you actually achieving your accolades that you wish to achieve. And I would say that this is imperative. We've reached a time where excellence is no longer the standard. It's just who's the loudest and who's seen the most. And so if you really want to be part of that change, if you want to make it so that your life is actually better, if you want to make it so that you're able to actually see real quantitative results and see real quantitative progress and see those things come to pass that you want in your life, then this really is now the answer. You have to have this implemented, whether you're doing it yourself or whether you're getting your coach to do it. And I'm going to let you know this too. Very soon, very, very soon, it's going to be to the point where you're going to have to ask your coach and say, do you have FQ3C as part of your program? And if they don't have it, they're going to be left behind. And it's because data matters, and that's how we can see if somebody actually does what they say they're going to do. Why would you not want them to be held to that standard? Why would you pay $1,000 to just throw it in the air and see what may come? You want them to be using something like this so that when you do your $2,000, you know if they are or not doing what they're supposed to do. And this is also another really cool thing. A lot of these guarantees, 30-day guarantees, 40-day guarantees, if you don't do XYZ in 30 days, all of your money back. Most of those are just ploys, right? Imagine if you can say, hey, listen, I want to see in my first week a 20% increase from my baseline. I want you to prove it to me that there's 20% increase in the baseline. Or they can say, hey, listen, to hold us accountable, we need to help you with the 20% increase in your baseline. Whatever the case is. It now doesn't have to be the money as the model. It doesn't have to be the, if you will, you clicking play on some sort of video and taking a course. It now can be, hey, was there actual progress made behaviorally? We have a new dimension that we're introducing here that is measurable and can hold it accountable. So anyways, that's my last words, guys. Quantify, get in everybody's hands. We have to do some changes. We can do it all together. And I would love to be able to connect with everybody and get this into your hands because it's that powerful.
Get this into your hands because it is that powerful. Thank you very much for coming on the King Obed podcast to share with us why you think we should adopt and adapt to the FQ3C model as against the smart model that we are all used to. So I know anyone who gets hold of this video, audio, they will appreciate the fact that yes, anyone can be successful, but you need to have a model which is guiding your success to which you can create systems around. And that is exactly what we have done on this episode to break down the FQ3C model and why you can quantify your progress, you can measure your progress and all the metrics that are attached to the FQ3C model. So thank you very much for coming on the King Obed podcast, and thank you viewers, listeners, for being part of the King Obed podcast. Until we meet again, let's be on the lookout for people who are destined for greatness and championing our vision to make the world a better place. Thank you. See you. Bye-bye. Yeah, so thank you so much, Shane, for coming on board.